Somewhere in the narrow, mined waters of the Strait of Hormuz, a tanker just broke one of the most dangerous rules in the entire Persian Gulf right now. And within hours, it paid for it in fire and steel. According to Iranian state media, an oil tanker has exploded after striking a naval mine, the direct consequence, Tehran claims, of that vessel drifting off the exact navigation corridor Iran has designated as the only safe path through the strait. If this report holds up, it marks yet another chapter in a war that has already turned one of the most economically vital waterways on the planet into something closer to a minefield than a shipping lane, and it's happening at a moment when the broader conflict between the United States and Iran is arguably more volatile than at any point in the last 5 months. Let's walk through exactly what's being reported, because the details matter here more than usual. According to Iran's semi-official Tasnim news agency, along with Mer News and Defa Press, the tanker struck the mine after leaving the route that Iran itself designated for vessels attempting to pass through the strait. Mir specifically reported that the tanker had turned off its radar system before the explosion, a detail that immediately raises questions about why a commercial vessel would choose to go dark in one of the most heavily monitored, most contested stretches of water in the entire world right now. As of this reporting, there has been no immediate official statement from Iranian government authorities confirming further details. And crucially, this account is coming exclusively from Iranian state-linked and IRGC-affiliated media outlets. No independent international body. And no U.S. Navy spokesperson, no third-party maritime tracking organization has yet confirmed the specifics of this exact incident at the time of this recording. That distinction matters enormously, and it's one worth keeping in mind as this story continues to develop over the coming hours. To understand why a single tanker striking a single mine is significant enough to matter globally, you have to understand just how deliberately and how extensively Iran has mined this waterway in the first place. When this current phase of the war escalated, Tehran didn't just threaten to close the Strait of Hormuz, it physically seeded it with naval mines and announced the closure outright. For a brief window following a memorandum of understanding reached with Washington in mid-June, the strait was partially reopened, while international shipping cautiously began returning to something resembling normal traffic patterns. That fragile opening didn't last. On July the 6th, that ceasefire broke down entirely when Iran attacked 2 oil tankers directly in the strait, tankers Tehran claimed had violated its designated waterway directions. Washington responded 2 days later on July the 8th, launching airstrikes on Tehran itself, and Iran retaliated in turn by striking American bases and assets in Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, and Jordan all in rapid succession. Since that collapse, the strait has remained closed by the Iranian military, mined, patrolled, and treated as a weapon in its own right, rather than simply a shipping route. This is why this latest tanker explosion isn't an isolated maritime accident. It's the direct, foreseeable consequence of an active, ongoing military strategy that Iran has been executing for weeks. The mines are not incidental. They are intentional. Tehran has made clear, repeatedly, that any vessel choosing to deviate from its specifically designated corridor does so at its own risk, and that risk, as of today's reporting, has apparently now materialized in exactly the way Iran warned it would. Whether this exact incident is confirmed in full by independent sources or not, the pattern behind it is entirely real and well documented. A heavily mined strait, a narrow safe corridor controlled by Iran, and commercial vessels forced to gamble with their crews' lives every time they attempt the crossing. And this isn't the first time tankers have exploded in these waters this month, not by a long shot. Just last week, Iran's Revolutionary Guard reported that 2 separate oil tankers moving through the strait exploded after colliding with mines in a single incident. U.S. Central Command, for its part, released footage showing missile strikes obliterating 16 Iranian mine layer vessels near the strait, targeting the very ships responsible for seeding these waters in the first place. President Trump, reacting to that round of mining, posted a direct warning on social media stating that if mines are placed and not removed immediately, the military consequences for Iran would be, in his words, unprecedented. Israel, meanwhile, conducted fresh airstrikes on targets in Beirut and Tehran around that same period, with residents in the Iranian capital reporting what they described as black rain, ash, and soot from destroyed fuel depots drifting down over the city. This is the environment this latest tanker explosion is unfolding in, a strait actively being fought over with mines and missiles simultaneously, where merchant vessels are essentially caught in a live minefield with no guaranteed safe passage in either direction. The economic ripple effects of all this have been immediate and severe. Oil prices have already surged past $100 a barrel for the first time since May. A threshold that hadn't been crossed in months until this latest wave of tanker strikes pushed it back over the line. Analysts and prediction markets tracking energy volatility have flagged this exact kind of incident. A tanker explosion tied directly to mine activity in the strait as precisely the sort of event that pushes crude prices even higher, since it reinforces to shippers, insurers, and traders around the world that this waterway remains genuinely, actively dangerous to navigate, regardless of any temporary lull in official hostilities. When you consider that the Strait of Hormuz alone handles roughly a fifth of the entire world's oil transit, every single tanker explosion here isn't just a regional headline. It's a direct input into gas prices, shipping insurance rates, and energy markets on every continent. There's also a deeper layer to this story worth sitting with for a moment, because it isn't only about oil and mines and military posturing. It's about the human beings actually navigating these waters. Just weeks ago, in a separate but related incident in the wider Persian Gulf, two tankers, the Malta-flagged Zephyros and the Marshall Islands flagged Safety Vishnu, were struck in what investigators believe was an attack using Iranian explosive boats. An incident that left at least one person dead and forced the rescue of 38 foreign crew members from the burning vessels. These aren't abstract statistics or geopolitical talking points. These are real sailors from multiple different countries, caught in the crossfire of a war that has nothing to do with them personally, simply because their ships happen to be moving cargo through the wrong stretch of water at the wrong moment in history. So what does today's reported explosion actually tell us about where this conflict stands right now? For one, it confirms that Iran's mining campaign in the Strait remains fully active, not a temporary measure that quietly lapsed once the initial shock of this war wore off. For another, it reinforces just how effectively Tehran has weaponized the very geography of the region, turning a shipping lane that the entire global economy depends on into a controlled corridor that only functions on Iran's terms, with anyone straying from that corridor doing so entirely at their own risk. And for the broader war itself, it serves as a fresh, visible reminder that even as attention shifts toward airstrikes on Iranian soil, toward troop movements, toward diplomatic maneuvering in Washington and Doha and Baghdad, the maritime front of this conflict has never actually gone quiet. It has simply been running in the background, mine by mine, tanker by tanker, largely out of the daily headlines, until an explosion like this one drags it back into view. It's also worth being honest about what we don't yet know. This report, as of right now, traces back exclusively to Iranian state and IRGC-linked media outlets, sources with an obvious interest in projecting the Strait as a hostile controlled zone that punishes any vessel operating outside Tehran's rules. There is no independent confirmation yet of the tanker's identity, its flag, its cargo, its crew's fate, or even definitive proof of the mine strike itself beyond what Iranian outlets have reported. In a conflict where information warfare has become just as central as missiles and mines, claims from any single side, whether Tehran or Washington, deserve to be treated with appropriate caution until corroborated by independent shipping trackers, insurers, or international naval authorities operating in the region. What is not in question, however, is the broader trajectory this incident fits into, a strait that was fully mined by Iran weeks ago, a ceasefire that collapsed on July the 6th, after tanker attacks nearly identical in nature to what's being reported today. 16 Iranian mine-laying vessels already destroyed by U.S. forces in a prior strike, specifically targeting this exact threat. Oil prices already surging past $100 a barrel in direct response to exactly this kind of maritime volatility. And now, according to Iranian media, another tanker caught in that same minefield, this time paying the price in an explosion that, if confirmed, adds one more incident to a growing list of vessels damaged, destroyed, or lost in these waters since the war reignited. The Strait of Hormuz has become, in the space of just a few months, one of the most dangerous shipping corridors on Earth, not because of storms or mechanical failure, but because two nations at war have turned it into a contested battlefield that ordinary commercial vessels are still somehow expected to navigate. Every tanker that attempts the crossing right now is making a calculated bet that it stays exactly within Iran's designated route, that no missile finds it from either side, and that the mines beneath its hull stay exactly where they're supposed to be. Today's reported explosion suggests that bet doesn't always pay off, and until either a durable ceasefire holds or Iran's mining campaign is neutralized entirely, expect this pattern to keep repeating, tanker after tanker, each one a fresh reminder of just how fragile global energy security has become in the middle of this war.